So remember that at this time, the railroads are expanding. Carnegie is making money, steel booming, the capitalists, all of these hyper rich people, they are thriving. Okay, they are thriving. Annual wages of railroad workers, according to the report of the Commissioner of Labor in 1890, were $957 for engineers, the aristocrats of the railroad, but $575 for conductors, $212 for brakemen, and $124 for laborers. Annual pay, okay? Railroad work was one of the most dangerous jobs in America. Over 2,000 railroad workers were being killed each year and 30,000 injured. The railroad companies called these acts of God, or the result of carelessness on the part of the workers. But the Locomotive Fireman's Magazine said, it comes to this: while railroad managers reduce their force and require men to do double the duty involving loss of rest and sleep, the accidents are chargeable to the greed of the corporation. It was the Depression of 1893 that propelled Eugene Debs into a lifetime of action for unionism and socialism. Debs was from Indiana, where his father and mother ran a store. He had worked on the railroads for 4 years until he was 19, but left when a friend was killed after falling under a locomotive. He came back to join the Railroad Brotherhood as a billing clerk. At the time of the Great Strikes of 1877, Debs opposed them and argued there was no necessary conflict between capital and labor. But when he read Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward, it deeply affected him. In the midst of the economic crisis of 1893, a small group of railroad workers, including Debs, formed the American Railway Union to unite all railway workers. Debs wanted to include everyone, but blacks were kept out. At a convention in 1894, the provision in the Constitution barring blacks was affirmed by a vote of 112 to 100. Later, Debs thought this might have a crucial effect on the outcome of the Pullman strike, for black workers were in no mood to cooperate with the strikers. In 1894, workers at the Pullman Palace Car Company went on strike. One can get the idea of the kind of support they got, mostly from the immediate vicinity of Chicago. The Attorney General of the United States, Richard Olney, a former railroad lawyer, now got a court injunction against blocking trains on the legal ground that the federal mails were being interfered with. When the strikers ignored the injunction, President Cleveland ordered federal troops to Chicago. On July 6, hundreds of cars were being burned by strikers. The following day, the state militia moved in. Debs was arrested for contempt of court for violating the injunction that said he would not do or say anything to carry on the strike. He told the court, "It seems to me that if it were not for the resistance to degrading conditions, the tendency of our whole civilization would be downward. After a while, we would reach the point where there would be no resistance and slavery would come." Debs in court denied he was a socialist, but during his 6 months in prison, he studied socialism and talked to fellow prisoners who were socialists. He later wrote, "I was to be baptized in socialism in the roar of conflict. In the gleam of every bayonet and the flash of every rifle, the class struggle was revealed. This was my first practical struggle in socialism." 2 years after he came out of prison, he wrote in the Railway Times, "The issue is socialism versus capitalism. I am for socialism because I am for humanity. We have been cursed with the reign of gold long enough. Money constitutes no proper basis of civilization. The time has come to regenerate society. We are on the eve of a universal change."